Hello, I'm a Greek geek because I'm 50% Greek and 100% a geek. Now, when I first saw the trailer for The Boys, my first thoughts were, oh no, here we go again. Here is another comic book superhero adaptation. I think superhero fatigue is setting in, and I'm gonna hate this show. And then I watch it, and I fucking loved it. So just the premise of this TV show is very interesting. It's a kind of world where superheroes actually exist and they're owned by a company called the Vought Corporation, and they control everything that they do, and the heroes are essentially assholes, and they only really do hero stuff for publicity and in order to get money, and everyone is just an arrogant asshole in this show. And there's this group called The Boys, which is trying to undermine the seven heroes and trying to take them down, essentially. And that's the show.
Let's hear it for my boy A-Train. All right. You fucking cocksuckers.
We get a very likable cast of characters. We get Huey, we get Frenchie, Butcher, Mother's Milk, the female. A lot of interesting characters who I really like. Carl Urban, he just kills it in this show. He does a fantastic performance of just this British guy who's angry and just wants to take down superheroes, and he is a lot of fun to watch. He is the highlight of this show, and the show is already good.
All right, good talk. Think about it. I'm here all day, all right?
And I like the character Huey, how his development going from this very shy and timid and not very assertive young man, and he grows and lots of things happens to him, and he eventually becomes more assertive and more violent as well, and getting a lot more self-confidence, which is good to see. And the heroes are referred to as soups, as in superheroes, and they're all just, well, not all of them, most of them are arrogant, and they're kind of like almost parodies of the Justice League. You've got Homelander, which is essentially an arrogant and very violent Superman. You've got Queen Maeve, who is essentially Wonder Woman, and A-Train, which is the Flash. The Deep is Aquaman, and he is often the butt of everyone's jokes as well, and nobody takes him seriously. And there's also Black Noir, which is kind of like a Batman kind of character. But you've got two others as well, which is Translucent and Starlight. And most of these heroes are corrupt and just want money and more power, as opposed to actually doing heroic deeds.
Copyright infringement is costing Vought $1.2 billion per year. That's money out of our pockets.
Tone, very dark tone. This is a dark comedy, so there is lots of violence, lots of vulgar language. The C word is said very often, and it's very enjoyable. And I don't know why, I just really enjoy black comedies, like what they can get away with saying and the jokes that they can say. Like, a lot of the jokes that I enjoyed were at the Deep's expense, because he is essentially a parody of Aquaman, more so of early days Aquaman, not necessarily modern Aquaman, where people just don't take him seriously because all he does is talk to fish, and he wants to do more than just flex his biceps for Instagram, and he tries to rescue dolphins and other sea animals, and it never goes according to plan, and he just fails at basically everything he does, and it is very funny. And basically everything Carl Urban says is hilarious too. The show explores what superheroes would be like if they were owned by a corporation and they were just only interested in marketing and public image and monetization and that kind of thing. So, and like, the heroes aren't really allowed to do superhero things without the company's consent, because it's all about public image and gaining more money. And I could kind of see this happening in the real world if heroes actually became a thing in our real world, that people would seek to exploit them and make money from them. They're even reprimanded for trying to do the right thing. Like, Starlight goes off and does her own thing to try and save a woman, and she gets in massive trouble because of it, because the company is worried about her public image and what it would do for their like, money, I guess. Now, this is a superhero TV show, so you'd think the action would be really great. Not necessarily. The action is not that great. The superheroes do some cool things, throwing people, punching people really hard, and that kind of thing, but the fight scenes, especially the more extended ones, like when the female is fighting Black Noir, it's edited very poorly and the angles don't really work for it, and it's kind of clunky and not very interesting and not very well choreographed. There aren't many fight scenes like this. It's more about the characters this show, more so than the action. But another aspect of the action that I enjoyed is, for example, Huey's girlfriend, A-Train runs straight through her. It's kind of a minor spoiler, I'm sorry. They show that they really are quite dangerous if they're not controlled properly. For example, A-Train, when he runs through Huey's girlfriend and completely like obliterates her, she just gets turned to mush essentially. And it's like, yes, that's what would happen. If say for example, the Flash or Quicksilver or something like that, if they accidentally ran into somebody, they would completely obliterate a normal human being. And I liked them exploring that kind of aspect of it. That kind of stuff was cool. The actual fight sequences, not so much. Now, this might be shocking, but I haven't read The Boys comic book. I didn't even hear about it until this show got released. So I have done a bit of research to see whether this was an actual faithful adaptation of the comic books. And from what I've learned or what I can gather, it's not 100% comic book accurate. They have made some quite big changes in this season. I'm not sure what they're going to do in season 2, but it's not 100% faithful to the comic book. Not a big issue for me because I haven't read the comic book and I'm not a big stickler for that kind of thing. But it might annoy some people who are huge fans of the comic book originally. The things I liked the concept of the show with the superheroes kind of being owned by a corporation. There were some really great performances. I really enjoyed the dark comedy and the violence. This show is a hard R, but it is so enjoyable and it kind of parodies superheroes so much and it's so enjoyable. As for the few things I didn't like, well, the action scenes were kind of lame, even though they explored some interesting factors in what a superhero would be like in real life. And this isn't like a big negative for me, but I'm just putting it in there because I'm trying to find things I don't like, and that's really hard for me sometimes when I'm doing things I don't like in this channel. But it doesn't 100% stick to the comic book material. Again, not a big issue for me, but there might be some people that think, I want it to be 100% comic book accurate. So if you're new to my channel and enjoyed my review, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I do talk about superhero TV shows and movies quite often, like this one. If that sounds like your thing, then you should subscribe. You'll get plenty more content like this in future videos. And as always, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, listening to me ramble on about a TV show for a few minutes. Thank you again. I'll catch you next time.